Welcome. I hope you enjoy the conversation you're about to see between me and another comedian about religion and comedy. These are conversations I'm calling disorganized religion. God bless. And for those atheists out there, may nothing await you after this life. Hey, nerds. Welcome to another week, another episode of Disorganized Religion. I am your host, as always, Seth Lawrence. This week, we have the special opportunity to be joined by a crew, a full posse from the Therapy of the Absurd podcast, a new podcast that's hitting the radio waves and the YouTube waves. So I'm going to go through each one of these people in turn. Stephen Bowman is the one that I have met through Flappers open mics, and they're all stand-ups. They're all fantastic. So you're going to love this conversation. It's going to be great. So first we have Stephen Bowman, then we have Stacy Ines, then we have Danna Ochoa and Danna Keil. So thank you all for joining me tonight.
Woo! Glad to be here, Seth.
Yes. Welcome. Hi. So we'll throw this out, and in general, I guess first let's talk about your podcast. So your podcast seems to be a top, like you cover everything. You guys talk for the first hour and a half, just the four of you, and then you have like a 2-hour discussion with guests, right?
Sort of. It's a 2-hour show altogether.
Right.
It's great. So how did the four of you meet? And how did you come up with this Therapy of the Absurd podcast?
Ooh, interesting.
Well, so funny story. We have not met. That's the thing. Like we have
in real life.
Right, in real life. We've not met. So Stephen contacted me one night we were on Messenger and he started talking to me about it. And then we all came together, and then we were all tossing names around, and something popped in my head. And I'm not a theater kid, although I wish I was. And I remember this term that people say, theater of the absurd, and then all of a sudden I just blurted out, therapy of the absurd, and everybody's like, okay, there have been so many amazing, wonderful titles, but you know how this goes. Like you want something that has a ring and something exciting, so it's just. I think there's all this just these incredible vibrations and energies that we're sharing, and looking forward to the day when we can and this is my grandmother used to say. My grandmother used to always say, hug my neck. So I look forward to the day that we can hug each other, and
yeah. As a youth in my faith, we were also warned about necking. I take it those are different.
Those are different.
Okay. All right. No one was really ever able to explain to me explicitly what necking was, but yeah. I'm guessing it's not hugging the neck.
That's a reference when we were very little. You know how little kids and your grandmother shoots down and you hug them around the neck, and that's the way that, great affection.
I mean,
I can imagine.
Isn't it basically a form of a hug? Just not with the arms.
Yeah, a very prolonged embrace.
That's
what it is.
Seth, so I met each of them in a different way. So with Danna, we were doing a lot of comedy shows and open mics, and that's how I was introduced to Danna, and we became friends on Facebook and Instagram. And then Stacy, she was in my second comedy class with a awesome comedy workshop teacher named Leslie Wolf. Mm-hmm. And then and that's how I met her. And then we became friends on the social media stuff. And then Dan, I known him because he recorded my my band that I was in Enthraller. Which was around for about a little over 17 years. Dan recorded our first album, Slaves and Gods, mixed it, mastered it, recorded it, everything at, what was it, Love Juice Studios, Dan?
Yeah, Love Juice Labs.
You Love Juice Labs.
Oh my gosh,
that's great. And so I reconnected with him on my birthday, which was July 9th, and I threw it on Zoom. And me and him got to talking after everybody left for several hours. And so basically, I think as far as the podcast, it'd be Dan, Danna, then Stacy. As far as the order,
yeah. But Stephen here is the glue, brings all of you together.
I'm trying.
Yeah. That's great. So as far as the name goes, there was no Queen moment where Danna Keil was like, everybody else is. You guys know the story of how Queen got its name?
No.
So Freddie Mercury basically chose the name Queen. They were arguing one day in the studio. Freddie Mercury goes home. He calls up the other members individually and says, hey, everybody else is cool with Queen. How do you feel about Queen? And they were like, well, I guess if everyone else is cool with it, I'm cool with it. And so they met the next day
And the other 3 members were like, you guys were cool with Queen? And they're like, well, you were cool with Queen. So they all pieced together.
Genius.
Apparently, Freddie Mercury was the only one really cool with Queen.
Bamboozled.
Right.
That's
So he played him.
He
played him.
He played him.
Well,
You know what?
Yeah.
I think it was pretty natural when we were throwing names around. We were all pretty much, this might work, maybe. And then once Dana brought up the name, we were like, that actually sounds really good, to the point where Dan went ahead and went on Google right away to make sure nobody else had the name. Like, we were like, this is it. This is the perfect one. The shoe fits. The shoe fits.
Yeah. So how would you describe your podcast? What is it that you are after in your podcast?
Happy chaos.
Laughter. Anything, just, make people laugh, informative, make people laugh. I guess that would be the 2 major ones.
Yeah.
And don't forget, make people laugh.
Like,
Don't forget that one.
I think there's the laughter, and there is the idea that, and that's why I think therapy came up for me. The idea that laughter heals. So the hope is that whatever, and that's across topics, whether we're talking about wonderful like sex toys, or whether we're talking about ghosts, or whether we're talking about how people got into comedy. There's something that's going to put everybody at ease, and I think that part for me as well.
I think we definitely wanted to. I mean, we all have opinions. Each person has their own opinions. And there are certain topics that aren't really on Huffington Post or the New York Post, nothing like that. So we get to come up and go to Florida local news and see what we get to find there. But we actually meshed pretty quick. Like we can have conversations for hours. It could be technical related. It could be related to kids, and I don't have any, but I'll totally be involved. It's just also natural.
Right. You don't have any that you know of, right?
We just, when we talk about kids, usually we're like, no, Stacy, you don't know. Only we know. Sorry, Stacy.
Right. There's no one quite as infuriating as a parent.
Yes.
No, that's because of the perfect birth control. Okay.
Yeah. No, actually, kids are the perfect birth control.
Yeah. My brother had 7, and that made me not even want one. So.
But you have one.
Yeah. And I have one, and he started college this week, so I'm very excited about that.
Ooh, man, congratulations.
Yes, congrats.
And I have 2 daughters.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
In a few years, they're going to make me want to find a bar.
I still want plastic surgery. No, I'm going to wait.
I do. I have 3. I have 3 kids.
Ah, what do you have?
So one of my opening jokes is my oldest is a girl for now. I don't know how that's going to work out. So we have a girl, boy, girl is the way we've gone so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Very fun. So, I think after having our first kid, my wife and I, Stacy, we were sort of like, we should have waited. We should have waited a little bit longer. And, but they come and they come, right?
Right.
Typically you came, so.
I'm the only one that had to, really.
Seth, I hope you don't mind this joke, but when you do go to services, do people wonder when you're going to have 2 more?
Right. I mean, wives or children?
Yeah, exactly. I can be ambiguous with that, can't I?
Right, exactly. I know. I tried to catch it. There is, I think, a bit more kind of in your business aspect of my faith. Because you go to the same congregation, depending on where you live. So you also live amongst people that are in your congregation. It's not like you shop around churches. It's geographically designed, right? So you're living around people that are also in your congregation at church. So you're going to school, all your kids are associating. So you kind of get into each other's business. And there's this aspect of, we're supposed to bring down God's children, right, to this earth, so whether they want to or not. And so, yeah, I think, there's a bit more of like, how many more are you having, or how many do you want in total? Or as soon as you get married, it's like, well, when are you going to have kids? There's a lot of obsession with misery, really.
I wrote a joke about that, actually, and I told Dan, I don't think Dana or Stacy's heard it, but it was something along the lines, I'm tired of people asking me when I'm going to have another one. And then the response is, what? Why? You want to buy one?
Make me an offer. Make me an offer.
Okay,
how many you want?
So just to clarify, you're Mormon, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So shouldn't the question be, when am I going to go wake up people door to door at 7 a.m.?
That is kind of a question, but that is reserved for full-time missionaries.
Oh, okay.
So, of which I was one. And the way that service works in my faith is, when now they changed the ages. So now when you're 18 as a young man and 19 as a young woman, you can go out, you essentially, you tell the leadership of the church, I want to serve a mission. And then the leadership gives you a call to anywhere in the world, and you go.
Wow.
And if you want, you can always decline at that point, but it's, there's a lot of societal pressure to go, right?
Yeah, I once dated a girl that was full-time missionary, but I think it was different.
Probably.
This guy.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
I
Is she
have to give
senior missionary?
No,
We also have those.
No, that would mean that there was some experience, I would think.
I mean, maybe, not necessarily.
So, Seth, did you serve as a missionary, a full-time missionary, when you turned 18?
So when I served, it was 19. Yeah,
Oh,
and
19,
I
okay.
did. I went to Quebec, Canada.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Very cool.
And you still have the tie.
Which tie?
Well, I thought, never mind. I was kind of saying maybe there's one, but.
What do you? I don't know. Wait, what do you like? Neckties?
Well, yeah. I mean, in my neighborhood, like if Mormons come by, they're always wearing. It seems to be the same tie every day. That's what it seems to be. Or they have a bunch that look the same.
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter, that they have ones that look the same. I had a handful of ties on my mission, and there was a tradition in my mission to exchange ties with companions that you liked. So sometimes people think, you go out with your, companion or partner for 2 years as a young man. No, you switch a lot. So I had, over the 2 years, I had like 12 different guys that I served with.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to say this. When I had first moved into my very own apartment in LA when I was 20, I remember hearing the knock at the door and looking through the peephole, and I'm like, why is the Best Buy Geek Squad here? I didn't know. I honestly didn't know.
Here to help you with your electronics.
Right.
You need to connect to the Wi-Fi with God. That's really
So you have to. So you have to serve 2 years. Is it 2 years mandatory, or is it?
Yeah. So it's 2 years for young men, and it's 1.5 years for young women.
Oh, okay. Can you like
because women aren't as strong. What?
Oh, can you do it again? Can you, sorry about that. Can you go 2 years and say, hey, I want to stay out here, and go 2 more years, or?
No.
Oh.
You can. I think there's an option to what they call extend your mission for one transfer, which is 6 weeks. But there are some that do it for school reasons, or depending on sometimes a family was moving once, and so they were like, why don't you just extend, and then you can come to the new house after we've all moved. And but it's pretty rare. I mean, after you've been out for 2 years, you're sort of like, I want to go home now. I've done what I can do here. I've learned what I think I need to, and it's it's time to get on with my life now. I need to go back.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, there's no indefinite, unless there was a missionary in my mission who was from the Congo, and sent to Canada. So he whole new world for him, right? And on his day to go home, he jumped the car. His companion was driving him to the the drop-off zone where we take them then to the airport, right? And his companion bailed, just jumped out of the car and ran out.
Wow.
Is
trying
it
to
like?
be a permanent Canadian citizen.
No, I mean, but Canada is the place I hear, and it's weird that you mentioned the Congo. I totally used to do like just stateside a lot of what do you say, advocacy and activist work, but it was all digital. Like I was reaching out to Congress people because of all of the atrocities and the things that were going on,
Yeah.
and so like when you said it, I was like, I get that because
Yeah.
you know, there's constant trouble there. Even now I try to stay connected because I joined this organization where I was made an honorary Congolese person, even though I don't know what my DNA says, but they have this great organization where you can be adopted. And then I had there was a Canadian student in one of my improv classes, and like Canada's a very, very awesome place. And I feel in contrast to coming from the experience of what's going on in the Congo, I would probably jump the car too.
I would have jumped the car.
Yeah, no one was confused as to why he did it.
Right.
We all knew why he did it. It's just it's a little bit bad PR if your faith is labeled as this backdoor way to get into a country.
Right.
That they then never leave, you know.
Well, I heard that Scientology will get you on a cruise ship for a long time. So
yeah, they will.
Yeah. So
and you'll learn how to clean real good. That's what I hear too.
Yeah. And then you get rich off the book you write when you leave.
Yeah,
so
you know, no biggie. Yeah, the two faiths that go door to door, and this is the question for Stacy: are you sure they were LDS? They were Mormon, because Jehovah's Witnesses also go door to door, and they also dress very similarly to the way you know the Mormon missionaries dress.
The way that I can't confirm it because it was 9 years ago, likely 10 years ago, was if it was a Jehovah's Witness, there was usually older women that approached me.
Yeah, that's fair.
If it was likely a Mormon, it were young men in very nice attire. I wouldn't.
Right.
So
the
that's
name
how
tag's
I could.
another tell-all too. So.
Yeah.
The iconic black name tag.
They look professional. That's why I thought it was the Best Buy Geek Squad. That's the only reason. I was like,
yeah, in my neighborhood,
I can't afford that. Why are they here?
Oh, you can afford us. Don't worry.
In my neighborhood, if the Jehovah's Witnesses come by and I don't have time to talk to them, I just open the door with a birthday present, go "Happy birthday," and they run away.
Right.
So.
Right. Or a bag of blood. Trying to give them a transfusion.
Right?
Wait, are you guys? Wait, are Mormons also against the blood transfusion thing?
No.
Okay.
No. We welcome it. Any medical necessity we take.
Okay.
Yeah. Our church just came out with some new guidelines regarding medical marijuana, and I am trying to figure out how to get a very low, mild cancer. Just see.
Hey, man.
Kidding.
Just say
but
that.
They did allow medical marijuana use. What's that, Dan?
Just say every day you watch Fox News, and that's enough cancer for the day. So.
Oh. Are we gonna go there? We're gonna get political now. Is that where we want to steer?
No. I'm just a brand loyal kind of guy, and I don't watch that.
I was gonna say this: Robinson 2020, everybody. Robinson 2020. Jan Robinson.
Who's that again?
I'm pretty sure she is the Libertarian candidate. Let me see.
I thought it was JoJo. Is that who
JoJo?
JoJo?
That's it. JoJo.
Yeah. Now, well, I'm left libertarian, so I'm not too far off. I'm just not so much into the no regulations thing. Other than that, I usually agree.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where we're regulating, I think. But
I was always pretty in the middle, and then I saw what Rand Paul did, especially when it came to Corona and just defying the positive Corona stuff. Didn't he get in trouble for using the gym facilities, even though he knew he was positive?
I know that he got in. I know that he had it, but I don't remember in which sequence. You know, did he have it and then he went to the gym, or did he go to the gym and then find out he have it? I don't remember.
I don't remember that.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we're all about, libertarians are all about self regulation, self governance. Something I can get behind. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
In the community of Mormons, is everybody generally walking the same political walk and having the same political talk, or is?
I think there's a lot of social issues that people of the Latter-day Saint faith share. So I think a lot of members of my faith tend to agree in whole picture about homosexuality or same-sex marriage. I think whether or not it's should be allowed politically is a totally separate question from whether or not we view it as a morally good practice, if that makes sense. So we try to divide, at least I personally try to divide political questions from religious questions. So like I lean way more libertarian on the marital issue because I think government shouldn't be telling people who can and cannot be married in the first place.
Got it.
I think that should be a religious right in and of itself. So, in my mind, France does it right. Everybody can get a civil union. And then if you want the religious sort of cherry on top, you go to your church for that.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah. And I think that makes the most sense, but anyway.
Well, I know.
Yeah,
So you can go to Justice of the Peace and just get a Justice of the Peace, type wedding or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And some people just zip tie their arms together, and then they're stuck that way for a long time.
Yeah. I suppose some people do. So what is all of your origin stories as far as superhero stand-ups go? How did each one of you begin?
Whoever wants to go first is fine. All
right. I guess I can go. Mine is kind of dark though, but I guess most stand-ups are. I had lost my hearing and I had developed really bad tinnitus after a work injury. But really severe tinnitus unfortunately causes mental issues. I didn't even realize that tinnitus is one of the leading causes for suicide. I wasn't sleeping. I had really bad anxiety. The noises were basically triggering some type of response. And I knew that if I continued to stay home, then it would probably be the end of me. Oh, see, I told you it was going to get dark. But
no, I mean that's fair, right? It's not that dark. I mean, this is not the darkest thing I've heard. So don't try to impress me. I'm not trying to dare you into going. Well, just whatever your story is. Perfect.
Now I'm gonna go goth. No.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And I had always enjoyed watching stand up, and it had always been some type of curiosity of I've always just wanted to try it, just try. And I took a class at Flappers Burbank, and
is that when Ken was there?
Yes, Ken was my first. Did you take a class with him?
No, but when I first auditioned with Flappers, he was one of the, he was the teacher. He was running Flappers University when I auditioned. Yeah,
Ken was definitely one of the most interesting, kind instructors that I had. But I realized that I really loved it, and I got some sort of high from making people laugh. And I just continue to make myself busy, and I haven't stopped, and it's been nearly 4 years I'm approaching. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. It's a beautiful story. So do you feel like it helped you recover or deal with the tinnitus and the side effects of that? Or how did that factor into the stand-up stuff?
It helped a lot with anxiety. I think we, as people, don't accept or try to address the issues that we have. And I found stand-up to be some type of therapeutic outlet where I could release these frustrations and I could vent out and yell. And apparently people find it hilarious, maybe because I sound like a chipmunk when I'm yelling or something. But it has helped significantly. I think quarantine has made it a little bit more difficult, but this is where the podcast definitely helped me. And so I think as long as we express our frustrations, it becomes a little more easier to cope with.
Yeah. Totally agree. What about you, Dan?
Well, so Stefan knows about this. I used to work at a small-time studio for a long time. Didn't really think about doing stand-up, but what it was that bands would come in, they'd be shaking, they'd be nervous. So the first thing I'd do is tell some really horrible off-color jokes.
Beautiful.
That I will not repeat here, and I probably will never. I was in my early 20s. You know, early 20s guys jokes, you know, things
Sure.
about horrible things happen to the grandma. Horrible things.
Sure.
Horrible things.
For me
Sure.
too.
Yeah. But, well, hey, you know what? In a studio like that, if a girl came in, it was funny. All the doors would open and people would go, is there a girl here? I heard a girl. I heard a girl. Because I'm mostly working with punk and metal bands, right? So they'd come in, they're nervous. They go, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'd look at them and I'd just tell them this really horrible joke. They'd sit there, stare at me for a second, then just start busting up. They get in there. They would be thinking about my joke while they played and not how bad they were going to suck. But then they nail it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing is like, I took their mind off of their fears.
Yeah.
And so it's funny later on, Stefan's like, you remember what you used to do at the Juice? Like, and I go, well, I've thought of doing stand-up. And he goes, I think you could do stand-up. And I go, yeah, I think I could do stand-up. I had a few of these, you know.
Sure. Sure. The love juice, courage juice.
Yes. It's funny because now I'm down to Michelob Ultra because I'm trying to stay low carb. So it takes about 20
I know nothing
of them.
about that, but I'll take your word for it.
But yeah, that's basically it. I'd tell jokes at the studio, and I was just good at entertaining people that were otherwise really nervous or sometimes upset, and it's like you had to get them off that. So
Right. That's great. And how long you been doing it now?
Since what? When was your birthday?
July.
July? Yeah, since July I've been doing comedy now, eh?
Of this year?
Yeah.
Oh wow! So
I just started doing the open mics, and I haven't done a full show yet, but I'm getting used to knowing the people. And on the podcast, you know, I'm usually interjecting with something that makes people either go ew or laugh. It's one or the other.
Right.
One or the other.
What's the difference, really? What's the difference?
He's ready for a stand-up special already.
Yeah.
I prefer the ew. For some reason. I just got that weirdness. So
yeah. Well, that's fair. I prefer the and then the laugh. That's what I like.
I want to say one more thing. One of my favorite laughs comes from my stepdad, who he's in his 70s. He's a more conservative person. But my favorite laugh to get from him is the one where he laughs, blushes, and then looks at me angry because I made him laugh about something he doesn't want to show people he thinks is funny.
Oh, that's great.
One of my favorite laughs.
Love
the guy. Love the guy a lot.
Yeah. That's beautiful. All right, Dana, your turn.
Wow. Okay. So one of the things that I do is I tag myself a born again comic. So, and I tag, right, because if you know anything about, I would say very much growing up in what is called the Black church, there's this, there's a very, very serious idea about being born again as a Christian, that this idea that if you're rolling with the Hebrew scriptures where it says that, we fell from grace, and then when Christ came, we're all born again and we're new. So I say that not because I necessarily am a religious or spiritual comic, as much as in 1997, when I moved to LA, I tried stand up, but I was like I was like, I want to break into Hollywood. I want to be a filmmaker. And I tried it. And I was actually funny, but it was so far from my mind as the thing I should do. And even when someone said, you should do this, I just thought, well, I'm this age already, and everybody else who's doing this started when they were this age, and now it's too late. And I just ran it and rinsed it straight out of my mind. And so then years later, I jumped in an organization called Toastmasters and found myself yet again back in the place of wanting to be the funny girl, because I grew up in love with Carol Burnett, in love with everything that Carol Burnett did, and then Alice and a lot of sitcom TV of the 70s. So then fast forward to last year, a contract job that I've been working came to an end. I had to hop in a Lyft car to make sure that my life kept rolling and taking care of my son. And all of a sudden, I had to shake down, what is it that at this point in our lives we really want to do? Like, you've had without going into all the personal baggage, there's been a lot of stop-start here, and what do you want to start and stay with? I mean, and that includes directing, filmmaking, math teacher, there's a lot of stuff in there. And when it all came down, I was just like, comedy and acting. That's it. And so, and as I got, all these, when you talk about the spiritual aspect of things, I got all these very divine and ordained rides, and I knew, and I could feel who I should be having these conversations with and who I should not. And every time I could feel it, and we would talk about these things, people would give me the advice. Well, go here, take classes here, do this thing, UCB, like all these things, a lot of things I didn't even really know about. And all of that came up. And then the biggest one was this young woman got in my car in July of last year. And within 3 minutes of just conversation, not even an effort, we were cracking up. And she like leans up in the car like, have you thought about stand up? And I was like, it's all I think about. And she was like, all right, at the end of the ride, she wrote down for me like a bunch of places to go study, a teacher she had because she herself was a stand up. And so that was July. The first Monday in October, whatever that date is, because I looked it up the other day, I think it was the 7th, I went to this great place called Dow Comedy Studio over in K-Town over on Western. And I said, okay, I'm here and I'm here to stay. And I did my first open mic and kept going every Monday. And and it has been a wonderful journey. So we're coming up on a year of being born again and steady. Another thing, you know what I'm saying? And another thing that is in again this black church thing, because I grew up in church a lot. Another thing they say in the black church is, the Holy Ghost is married to the backslider. And so I always say that comedy is married to the backslider, and I'm the backslider. Like I backslid all those years and now I'm back. And and that's it.
The backslider being like the hesitant kind of, I'm not so sure person.
Or the person who just was like all out the gate, like sinning and whatever, all these these great terms we talk about, sinning and doing all kinds, not even just hesitant, but just like in the streets, pimping, whatever it is. Like when we say backsliding, the reference in that space is to someone who is just irreprehensible. And and worse yet, maybe they were somebody who had come into the church and was all churched out and then went out and became irreprehensible and then came back. So it's this that's the idea that you're sliding back.
Prodigal son kind of idea.
Right. So it's totally that. And so I just said, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stand my ground. And it's been a blessing, because even in that Toastmasters time, I was doing what are called humorous contests, and I was winning those contests and all of that, but still never had the nerve to just go into a comedy club and just take the mic and, go to work like that. So.
Right. Now the Toastmasters, that's like a public speaking group, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. So what kept you coming back to stand up? Is it this sort of addiction that Stacy touched on?
There's freedom. It's one of the few places that like I have, I certainly can only speak for me. Like I have a twin sister. We were definitely the overachieving kids in school. Like, just read, kept ourselves books and almanacs and atlases, these books that maybe no one in here's ever heard of, but like we thought reading encyclopedias. Yeah. So we thought reading encyclopedias was like great. And so I don't know. So I think it was just between packing tons of information and then watching over the years, for me personally, what comedians and what sketch, because I didn't even know what sketch was by name until much later in life. But again, watching a Carol Burnett and a Vicki Lawrence be able to deliver these amazing and funny experiences, watching Soap and watching, Benson and watching just all this stuff. But I think just this idea that comics they were almost like not chameleons, but just, it's one of the jobs where you can use everything. There is no wasted information. There's no wasted stuff. There is something that you can bump or tag or do a callback with everything. Like I hosted a mic tonight, and it was just very exciting because I didn't really have a set prepared, but I had watched Frozen for the first time. So I was able to, and I just had all this fun stuff because growing up, like I always tell people, I've been Black all my life. So I was always the kid who would watch American Bandstand. Like I would watch Soul Train because that came on first for us. And then we'd watch American Bandstand but I'd be like, are there any black people? Or when we would watch all of the pageants, like all the Miss Americas, like, are there any black people? Like this is the way that, you know, I'm a one, you know, grew up in the 70s. This was the lens I saw life. So when I saw Frozen, I was like, are there any black people? You know, it's just kind of the same thing. So I was able, right. So I was just able to do that. So I just feel like comedy is the one place where I can use everything. Nothing is wasted. No one ever says to me, you're too smart. Like, because I've gotten that all my life. Well, you're just so smart. You're just too smart. No one ever says that. They either say, you sound like Trevor Noah. Like there's just room. And so it's just a place of freedom. And I feel like everything that I've amassed, I have somewhere to place it now.
Yeah. No, that is one beautiful thing about comedy, where anything can work, right? Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, Stefan, how about you round us out with this question?
I had to write some stuff down because I wasn't really quite sure where to start. Well, you know, growing up, you know, I was around like my dad, and my dad would always show me like SNL and stuff. And you know, one of the things that they had in there, amongst all the, you know, amazing people, I think for me, I stopped kind of watching after Chris Farley died. After he died, I kind of just drifted off of that show. I much respect everybody that's still on it. But I had a thing with Martin Short. I really loved Martin Short, and he had a character when I was young that to this day, like, stuck with me. His character that he did was called Ed Grimley, and he had the hairdo that kind of went up before there was even an Ace Ventura, and he had like a dead goldfish in his little fish bowl that he would talk to, and he had a little triangle where he'd hit the triangle and just go crazy, you know. And then what was it? Saturday mornings you had Paul Rubin, Pee Wee Herman, and I would see Pee Wee's Playhouse, and I'd just go nuts, you know, la la la, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then I ended up getting the dolls. You pull the strings on the dolls, and they would do the one-liners, you know, would come out of the dolls, and those are, you know, those. And then in Living Color, was really huge. I'm a huge, you know, Keenan Ivory Wayans. I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, one of my favorite movies of all time. Freaking Damon Wayans. What is it? Homie the Clown. He has so many things that I love. Tommy Davidson, hilarious. Just so many really amazing people on that show. Jim Carrey. Yeah. You know, and then Kids in the Hall. I believe that's Canadian, if I'm not mistaken. And that had a lot of I used to sneak and watch that stuff. And the thing on that show that really, like, you know, really gut punched me was when they had the whole Shakespeare thing. They had these Shakespeare things, and the guys, I don't know if you'd say machismo or macho or whatever, but in order to prove that they were, you know, they were peacock and they were the best Shakespearean guy, each one would find a way to show his giant genital prowess, if you will. So they'd be reading Shakespeare. One guy would have a banana in his pants, and all the ladies would be like, oh, and then he'd read Shakespeare, right? And everybody's like, wow, he's really good. And then eventually they get to the final guy, and they're like, oh no, this is the greatest Shakespeare guy, and his is like a snake. It wraps around his leg. And I just remember being a kid, like, what is this? I don't know what's going on. Right. You know, I just thought it was hilarious. And then, you know, stand-up specials. My dad is like, my mom is the, you know, more, I wouldn't say super conservative, but, you know, she's one of the proper parents. Oh, they can't watch that. It's not, you know, it's not for kids. My dad was not like that. My dad was full throttle. Oh, you want to watch Richard Pryor? Yeah. Let's watch it. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. And I'd watch him be like, I don't know, but it's funny. You know?
Yeah. You're laughing, Dad. I don't know half of what he's saying.
You know, and that led to like Rodney Dangerfield, Sam Kinison, Eddie Murphy. He took me to see, what, Delirious was the first one, if I'm not mistaken, unless I'm wrong. Yeah.
It is.
So then he took me to see Raw. But before we went, he showed me on VHS the Delirious. And the thing about his aunt being a Sasquatch, I think that's what it was. And she dips.
It's been a long time.
Oh, okay, but she dips her head in the water when they're fishing or whatever. Comes up out of the water with a fish in her mouth. And I think that was with his Uncle Gus. Uncle Gus. And what she say? Guinea goo goo or something like that. You know?
I forgot what that term was.
Oh yeah, and you know, and that really, like, it hit me. I was like, holy, I don't know. I mean, I didn't comprehend all the, chemistry of it, but it made me laugh. Just the word, like, everything up into the word. And we go and see Raw in the theater, and I just remember getting looks like, what the hell is this kid doing in here? What, why is it, I'm sitting there and he's laughing, and because I didn't understand everything. I tried to laugh whenever my dad would laugh. So, and he has a really like Revenge of the Nerds kind of laugh. So when he laughs real hard, it's all, it sounds like he needs sounds like he needs oxygen, So, but I didn't laugh like that though. I just laugh regularly.
You laugh like a cool guy. No, we get it.
Right.
We get it.
Yeah. So all that, and then and we forward to now, and I was lucky because I played music, and so comedy came into my life. It's already always been there, but I didn't understand I didn't have the blueprints.
As you performing it.
Yes, right. I didn't have the blueprints, to figure out exactly where the starting line was, if you will. And so my journey is a very interesting one in the sense that I tried to talk to a lot of different guys in comedy. I didn't want to harass anybody. I don't know. I just felt weird bothering, too many people, but I did bother a lot of guys to see if they, could point me in the right direction. And nobody would block me. Nobody would say no. Nobody would give me the F word. I'd get no response. Right? I'll take a hateful response. At least I know where you stand,
Sure.
But nobody would respond.
Ghosted.
Oh, I got ghosted hard. They're like, he's too thirsty. He's too thirsty. And it would be simple things. Hey, I just was wondering if you had any advice. I wasn't like, hey, can I get your number? Could we hang out? I think I'm gonna come.
I mean, were these big name guys that you were trying to hit up?
No. And if any of them were, I'd never heard of them. No disrespect to them, though.
Right.
Luckily, because I played music for the 17 years, my ex-guitarist, his ex-wife, brought a lady named Nicole to our shows, and I became good friends with her. And we became friends on Facebook and Instagram. So, forward, they're not together. The band has, been dismantled for several years after my mom's passing. And she starts posting that she's going to comedy shows. And I was like, wow, where are you going to comedy shows? She said Comedy Store. She listed a few other places. And I was like, well, who are you going to see? And then she listed, and I'm going to butcher her name, and I hope if she sees this, she forgives me. But it's something like Joy Jung Summers or something like that.
Oh, Jialing Summers.
There you go. Thank you. I'm so sorry. And I hit her up on Instagram, and I was like, how did you start, and where, and I just let her know I met you through my friend Nicole. So that way it's not just a complete weird situation.
Sure.
Some people might take it as harassment, you never know. And so she thankfully talked to me for a couple days and explained certain things. And she brought up a place called Tao Comedy Studio.
Yeah.
With the nice teacher there, Bobby Oliver. And so I've taken 3 of her workshops. And I learned a lot, and she's really awesome. And I highly recommend checking out her, her studio and her book, The Tao of Comedy. What is it? Embrace the Pause. And then my 3rd class, I took a 2nd class as well with where I met Stacy with a instructor named Leslie Wolf, who's really, really awesome. And not this is on a side note, but she has a movie that just came out called Guest House with Pauly Shore and Billy Zane. So, and what is Steve-O? So check that out.
Bobby Lee. Yeah, there are a lot of bigger names now.
Oh yeah. And so really awesome lady. And I think and that's pretty much, how I got in. I just been.
So when did you start? When did you start officially?
Officially last year, later in the year before the Corona stuff. And I took her 8-week class, and then my first big show was at Flappers early March before the lockdown.
Yeah.
And as it would have it, that same night after the first class performed, the entire club got shut down because of coronavirus. So her second class of the other students of 8 weeks didn't get to perform.
Wow.
Yeah.
On the same night. But here's the kicker, right? I was originally scheduled to perform in the later show. But thankfully, and I got to thank my sister-in-law, thank you, Amy. She said, I need you to play earlier so I can watch you perform.
Oh.
They weren't able to make it, but if she didn't suggest that, I would have never gotten to perform at all.
Right. That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, there you go. Serendipity, God, coincidence, whatever you want to call it. That's great. So, okay, so Dana talked about kind of growing up in a faith. Did anybody else grow up in a faith, or
Wants to go
you all
first? I
just
can answer.
atheist heathens? No.
I became an atheist because I grew up in the faith.
Oh, is that right?
Probably,
Yeah.
well, not because of that, but I grew up in faith and became an atheist.
So
Not because I didn't, because I got bored of pretending Spider-Man was jumping from chandelier to chandelier during a sermon.
Yeah.
But there was other reasons.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
But Dan
Yeah.
kind of meandered into atheism. It sounds like Stacy made a beeline. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, actually,
well-
you know what? Meander is a good word for my experience. You're right.
So let's go with Stacy first.
Yeah.
What drove you from God being raised religious?
I was raised in a Catholic household, and it's not.
Oh, okay.
Most
Then never mind. We
Hispanics-
already know. We already know the rest. No,
Same
I'm just
here.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
We don't even get an option. I mean, automatically, most Hispanics that I know, it's you're born, and next thing you know, some dude in a white cloak is throwing some water at you, and may the power of Christ compel you.
But I mean, do you even know it at that point? You're still an infant. Get out of here. Your first memory cannot be some guy in a white robe.
That's the whole thing. We don't get an option as soon as we're born. I remember being forced to go to service every Sunday, but my family was usually really lazy about it. They only went hardcore when they knew that I needed to do it for my first communion.
Okay.
And my sweet 15, they're like, we have to get you in the good graces of God, so we have to go every Sunday.
Sure.
Little did they know, I screwed that up.
Oh, so you left before the quinceañera?
I left probably after, because I was still pretty young and I was still under their roof. But I think I as soon as I realized all the bad things that were occurring, the way that they felt towards the LGBT, the way that they felt towards interracial marriages, the way that there was a variety of things that led to it. And I realized if I want to practice something that I should believe in, I want to believe in it first. I want to consider it a safe space. But I haven't found it yet, and that's I'm like, I'm an atheist.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, so I guess the one pushback I'll give you is, as far as atheist versus agnostic, is it like you don't know about God, or you believe there is a God out there, he or she or they or whatever just doesn't find, hasn't communicated with you through a church? Or is it like, no, there is no God, I am atheist? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest debate I've had with myself all this time.
Sure.
It's, if there was a God, why does so and so happen? Why does, and
yeah,
I still haven't figured it out. Again, I never ever bring down anybody in reference to their own religious or their beliefs, but
sure,
it's become this whole identity type crisis issue in reference to spirituality, where I'm like, is there a God? Maybe there is. I'm still conflicted, but I did realize that the Catholic faith wasn't for me, and I stepped away from it.
Interesting. Well, I'll tell you, one pointer: next time those Mormon missionaries knock on your door, they might be able to answer all those questions.
Do I get to keep my alcohol? Do I get to keep the most important thing in my life right now?
It might be the most important thing to you right now, but as you start down the path of righteousness, it will be replaced.
She's like, I have righteous alcohol, okay? This is righteous
Have
alcohol.
you had Cuervo Gold?
The members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints do not even use wine for what you would be familiar with as the communion. We use water. No alcohol consumption at all.
Oh God, no. Not yet.
Well, I mean, really, we say, "Oh God, yes." So,
Oh man.
all right, Dan, what's your meandering story? What's your meandering story?
Well, I mean, I know I look like I could be Muslim and or Amish.
I would probably just lean toward the latter.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's white Muslims. So before I say
Plural?
anything, first of all, we haven't had this discussion amongst the group, and one of the reasons is the truth. So I have a certain thing where I want everyone to live in peace, regardless of what their faith is.
Yeah.
But on the other thing, it's interesting you say agnostic versus atheist, because agnostic is a adjective. There's either a agnostic or a Gnostic atheist.
Sure.
A Gnostic atheist is someone who believes for sure there's no God. I am an agnostic atheist who leaves room for doubt, because I don't want to believe anything that hasn't been verified by a reliable and honest epistemology.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, enough nerd words, right?
Yeah, no, I follow you. I follow you. I get it.
But
I use agnostic in the noun form as shorthand because, you can't necessarily be a religious agnostic. I think atheist agnostic sort of redundant. But go on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Point
it's
well
basically
taken.
the way terms change over time. So that's what has happened, right? So that's fine.
Right.
Now, mainly I want to live in peace, and there's a lot of atheists that will tell you they have no cognitive dissonance.
Sure.
No, I know I have a cognitive dissonance because I want to live in peace. Everybody live in peace. And on the other side, I believe that religion is a detriment to society.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So why do you believe that?
So please, everybody, that's religious, this is just my point of view. And I also think that you don't choose it. What appeals to you is what you go with. Okay.
So you look at religious affinity as like sexuality.
Yes.
Like you either like boys or you don't like boys.
Exactly. I see it like that. So here's the whole thing. I mean, and I also grew up Catholic. Some of them really like boys. So which is why I was glad I never took that altar boy position. Because I was a cute kid, before the beard. Anyway, so there's two reasons, one, I think that the American pandering to everybody's thing might be true, is why today we deal with fake news and alternative facts. We never got together as a society and determined one way to figure out what is true.
And you think that's a systemic issue of American society?
I think it's a not just American, but I think it's a long-term side effect of just the way that we handled I mean, recently it seems like there's a lot of people on a certain side that don't want to have religious tolerance, but I think that our brand of religious tolerance has led to people going, no, it's just free. We can agree to disagree on what reality is, and it's like that causes certain problems over many generations. Yeah. And I think that's why we're dealing with a lot of the evangelical Trump supporters that seem to be disconnected from reality and believe in alternate reality, because for many years we didn't have a discipline to figure out things through, like I said, reliable and honest epistemologies as a society.
Oh, that's so interesting, because see, I would attribute this idea that you're talking about to more leftist mode of thinking, right? We're redefining gender, we're redefining identity, race. We're redefining almost everything, and I feel like that's coming more from a leftist side than a conservative side, if that makes sense.
I think it's definitely, there's some noise coming through, but I think
I was going to say there's some noise coming from somewhere. I don't know.
Is there some feedback?
It's just like static, but I don't know if it's like I'm talking now, but I don't know. It was just like really, really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I think God was just displeased with what Dan was saying.
Well, and I don't know where.
There it goes again.
Do we know where that's coming from?
I don't. I mean, is it coming from me?
Let me see if I cannot. if I can mute myself.
Okay.
All right. So it's gone now. Whatever it is, I don't know. So
Is it
anyway,
back? Sometimes
no,
there's
it's not back now. I'm
Sometimes
sorry,
there's space
Dana.
feedback.
It's nope. It's I don't know if it's Stacy's. It seems to be coming here and there. Anyways, maybe it's mine. Anyway, there's the second point, which is I believe that the promise of heaven, it can breed apathy in people, so they take more crap from their leaders. And if more people believe that this was it, they wouldn't take so much crap from the corporate machine. I don't know if God's mad at
All right,
my
are we
mics.
back?
Yeah,
Now,
you're back.
now you're back.
Okay. I don't know what happened.
But all respectfully, I want to live in peace with people, and this is where I say the cognitive dissonance comes in. On one hand, I want there to be peace. I realize people don't choose what appeals to them. On the other hand, I have these views about religion having some negative aspects.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why, I respect that Dana is a woman of faith. I don't do my religious bits on our show. I leave that for Mike's, where she may be. I've told her before, if I get to my religious stuff, you can go get a drink or do what you need to do. Because
you're coming from a place of love. That's why.
Well, and it's also, I'm also an agnostic atheist because I leave room for doubt.
Yeah.
There has to be room for doubt. If I haven't seen evidence for something yet that compels me, that's all there is to that. Right? That's it. So I'll leave it.
That's funny, Dan, because too, like, I am a woman of faith, but the thing is, most of you don't know where I go to church, how I go to church, or what I do, or what I truly believe in. Like, you have, other than the fact that I agree in absolute, I agree in that I believe in God. But one of the things, before you guys met me, like, I used to do these spiritual talks on Facebook, and I wrote a book. And one of the things that I stress at all times, I say God by any name, no name, and every name, because I believe that it's going to be different for everyone. But what I believe, honestly, is that there is a power and a presence, no matter what you call it. And even if there's a person, people who say they're atheists, you believe in something because something compels you to do good, something compels you to be sympathetic, something compels you to be certain things. And so I think, I get caught up in the habitual name of God because I was raised in a church where that's what that's what we were taught. But it's interesting. I had a great conversation with a college classmate today, and I was just like, but technically, the books that we read are translated from German 7 times over. The word God is made up from translations. If I don't know Hebrew, but what I know is that it's a 4-dimensional language. And if you look at the Hebrew Bible, or what we call Old Testament, which can be offensive to someone who does not have a New Testament, then you'll know that there was no name for that power until eventually there was enough translations to say we'll call it Yahweh or Jehovah and on down. So for me, I believe that there is a spiritual presence that is fully alive and fully awake in everyone. I believe that your life tells me more about what you believe and what you believe in than anything, and even more so how you think about things. And so for me, I grew up certainly in organized religion. I grew up in a church that was named Missionary Baptist. There was a point I was in a church that was Southern Baptist. Then I went back to Missionary Baptist Church. Then I started hanging with friends who were Muslim. So I kind of explored that space a little bit, but it was never my thing. And then I got to the space where I am now, where it is a more of a Christian movement, meaning that it is based in a certain belief about Christ. But I think people would be very, very interested to know that I don't necessarily think that when we talk about death and resurrection of Jesus the Christ, that we're talking, it's a metaphysical conversation and not a literal conversation. We know what we do know to be fact is that Jesus, who attained Christhood, was a great teacher who taught in parables. We know that there are some parts of the Hebrew scriptures that do cross with Hebrew history and some parts don't. And that a lot of it, if you're going by that book in particular, which I love that book. Again, I was raised on that book, but it's like anything. I can read The 3 Little Pigs and I can take away great lessons, and nothing has to be true. I'm not in the streets looking for pigs to talk, but are there great themes that can be taken from that book, of course. And the same thing for the book that we call the Bible. You know, I'm not necessarily looking for any of that to be true or not. I don't know that there's a way to know. There is no generation of people that is alive to say that my great, 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 great saw this and can prove that that happened. What I do know and what I trust is that somewhere in the movement that I'm in, we look at the transcendentalists, we look at things scientifically, Ernest Holmes, divine science. If this really works, it can be proven that if I speak my word over a situation and the situation improves, that is proof to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? The truth can be proven. And one of the things that we always say is, you don't have to take my word for it. You know, try it for yourself. And if it works for you, then roll with it. If it doesn't, then that's you. So for me, I'm a woman of great faith, but faith as a concept, not as a dogmatic idea, as specifically spoken in the churches that I grew up with. And it's all so much bigger than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you know what? You made me think of just a few things I'm going to say really quick because I know I took some time. Number one, I have a favorite passage from Jesus, which is a prophet is never believed in his own town, which I use that in comedy. If you talk like Bobby Oliver, your friends and your family aren't going to laugh at you the way strangers will.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is a joke where I say, I tell people I'm spiritual because it sounds better than alcoholic.
Oh, Jesus.
And there was one final thing, and now I'm forgetting it. Hey, I took a drink, and there it goes. No,
I think I know why you
forgot.
I know why you forgot.
No, the final thing is I do believe in a higher power, and it's the same higher power that Michelle McNamara, who passed away in 2016, she was Patton Oswalt's wife. She had a saying, "It's chaos, be kind," because I think the only higher power is chaos, and we only have each other to fight against it.
Yep. Interesting. So Stephen, where do you fall on the spirituality spectrum?
Well, first off, Dana, did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
I actually jumped in on Dan's question. I said, he wasn't he was asking the question specifically to Stacy and Dan. I don't know if you know there's more for me, but I don't know. I feel bad. I was just jumping in on Dan's question to this idea that Dana is a woman of great faith and may not laugh at. I was like, we don't know that to be true. We don't know that to be true.
He's just right.
I wanted to come back to you. Okay. And then I want to talk about this, like, you know, making religious jokes or non-religious jokes, right? Jokes about religion, right? Mm-hmm. I want to touch on that too. But so, Stephen, where do you fall on the spirituality spectrum?
Well, I just wanted to say really quick, you know, it's just more of a compassion, understanding, and love thing with Dan, and consideration for everybody else. He doesn't mean it out of, you know, anything negative. That's all I just wanted to say.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. But where do you fall?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I feel this is why I like this podcast for comedy and religion, because I feel like as stand-ups, we shouldn't be offended by other people's opinions.
Oh no, yeah,
you have strong armor, right? Man. Like we should all just be like, okay, that's what that's your boat, dude. That's fine, you know.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. So all with good love and respect.
Oh yes. I grew up in a Buddhist household. It was not anything that was forced on me. Thankfully, my mom was very open. Her father was a Sunday school teacher, a Japanese man, and he was ex-Air Force. I don't remember if he did drill sergeant stuff too, but he raised, you know, three girls on his own. He caught his wife cheating in his bed, and they got divorced, and he won the kids. I know that's TMI, but that's okay. That'll be my comedy thing. Hey, there's Stephen, TMI.
When they say won the kids, won the kids sounds like you got them in a carnival. I mean, that's just a weird phrase.
He rolled the dice, you know. So he took care of all three girls. You know, military background. He was in the internment camps, and you know, he was a Sunday school Christian teacher. So my mom grew up that way. But she ended up meeting a gentleman who introduced her to a Buddhism called Nichiren Daishonen's Buddhism, or the SGI. It's the same faith that Tina Turner practices. But like I said, my mom, because of what she dealt with her father, he was a very strict military religious guy. She was not. It's not that she wasn't religious, but it wasn't something that really spoke to her because of the experiences that she dealt with in life. Everything speaks to someone differently depending on the experiences they have. Experiences are a very big thing. And so she told me, she's like, you can practice this Buddhism if you like, if you feel that, it's something you want to do, but I'm not going to force you to do it. And I was very fortunate in that sense because my best friend Corey, who I was jealous of his hair, and I think I might have told this story on the podcast. He had the best fro. I think I was telling Dana.
I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of that.
I wanted his fro, but his stepdad was Filipino, so he was Catholic, and I think the mom was Christian, if I'm not mistaken. Really awesome people, love him to death. I miss him like to death to this day. And I saw a lot of the stuff that was put on him, not criticizing them or their beliefs, but I remember us hanging out and he's like, why? Because I came over early on a Sunday. This is why I bring this up. And he's like, I got to go. I can't play. And I was a kid. I didn't know what was going on. No judgment on him or anybody, but I didn't know because, that's my stuff was different. He's like, oh, I got to go to church. I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't process it very well. And then eventually he told me, he's like, I really hate going. I really don't want to go. And he said that several times to me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. But I didn't, because I hadn't dealt with some of the stuff he dealt with, I didn't quite understand kind of where he was coming from, kind of addressing some of the stuff Stacy was even saying, it being forced on her or her growing up with it, not really having an option. So he didn't really have an option. And long story short, I guess the mom heard him one time say that, and he got beat out of him.
No.
Like legitimately. I'm not kidding. This lady didn't play no games. I'm not. I loved her to death. She didn't play no games. And so, I went back to my mom and I was like, what, I don't understand. Why did that happen? It scared the living out of me, man. I'm not playing. Like I said, this lady didn't play games. She heard or saw him do anything. And my mom was very similar in that sense. Like when it came to discipline, if you cursed, you ate soap. If you were really bad, you stood in the corner for an hour or two. If you moved while you were in the corner, you got the belt on your ankles and your calves. If you fell asleep while standing in the corner, well, yeah, you can go to bed, but the next day you're coming back to stand in the corner again. If you didn't eat your food, well, that's breakfast and lunch the next day. My mom was like hardcore like that. Other people's moms, I'm sure, were crazier, or whatever, or equal, or whatever worked for them.
Right.
And so my dad was, I guess you could say, my dad was I don't know if he was atheist or agnostic. I don't know, because he said a lot of very bizarre comments to me. He's like, Stephen, I don't mind that you're Buddhist, but just understand, if I'll love you either way. If you want to worship the toilet or the trash, I accept you for who you are. You just do you, bro. Yeah. Right? That didn't help me. That confused me. I didn't know what
Right. Right.
He had some hardcore feelings on it, but his parents also hardcore religious. And, his dad came from the South, hardcore. I have jokes about him. He's a hardcore racist from Oklahoma who was a drill sergeant, Golden Glove boxer champion, and racist. He's the guy that lifted the veil on my little baby thing. Oh, what a cute little fish head, right? Or, oh, what a cute little yellow, whatever you want. Oh, he's Oriental. Or why do his eyes look funny? That was the type of guy he was.
Yeah.
So he hated my mom amongst all of them. But as karma would have it, before I get back to the religion stuff, as karma would have it, though, who do you think was there to wipe his and help clean him and take care of him while he was in pain and dying from cancer? Yeah, one of the other people right here. Oh yeah. So I explored a lot of different things. My buddies tried to get me to go to church with them in the Catholic faith, in the Christian faith. I had lots of ladies who I was very attracted to who tried to get me into witchcraft.
Nice.
Come over here.
Yeah,
Yes.
Wait, you too?
Yes.
Those Wiccans.
Hey man,
Yeah.
they were hot, bro. Hey man, I was 17. Leave me alone. What do you want? What do you want? Guys at 17 don't think straight. It just does. We're just like boobs. Oh, what do you want to do? Oh, okay, yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Those witches, they knew it. They knew it.
And then my brother had a friend who tried to put the whole Satanist thing in me, and then I listened to his behavior. I watched his actions and how he dealt with people, and I was like, no, I'm okay. That ship sailed far as. He came over my house one day and he's like, is your brother home? I'm like, no. He's like, you want to go with me out to the forest? I was like, go with you out to the forest. What are we going to do out there? Right? Because I didn't know where this conversation was going. Call me naive or stupid, but I had no fucking clue. He's like, oh well, I got some kittens in the back trunk. And, oh yeah, no, this is real. Not making it up. I swear on my life. And I looked at him and I go, you know what? You have fun, bro. You have fun.
Yeah.
I already got plans. I'll talk to you later.
It does sound like he was actually more of a Satan worshiper than a Satanist, because there's actually a distinction. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me.
No, there is, because
no, he's right. No, yeah, you're right.
Satanists are actually an atheistic group that, if you read their prefix, their 10 prefix of Satanism, a lot of them are really just stoic values. That's all they really are. Is don't give your opinion unless asked. Don't ever harm children. That's one of their rules. But then the Church of Satan, started by Anton LaVey, was this atheistic group that, they did some, they put on dresses too and did stuff, but and then there's the Satan worshipers, which are the ones that want to chop up kittens and stuff. They're the ones actually. And by the way, that's just bad marketing. Yeah, what should we call our atheist group? Oh, Satanists. Do you think people will take that wrong? Nah, not at all.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Oh yeah, and he left a tape at my house. So my old bandmates came over. Hey, did Jeff so-and-so leave a tape? Yeah, he's like, hey, pop it on, bro. So we pop it on. And I guess, the kids and us, we just started laughing because we thought it was hilarious. We were in shock and awe of like, what are we listening to? And after that, he became, very strange to us. But long story short, going through all those different experiences really, got me to reading about the Buddhism my mom practiced and that she was into. And then that, Tina Turner practices. I'm trying to think of the other, Orlando Bloom.
Herbie Hancock.
Herbie Hancock. Oh, yeah. And so, that's basically the, life philosophy and religion that I follow. And one of the things that it teaches is that happiness in this life is extremely important. And because, no one knows if there's another one. I mean, we can believe there is, but no one knows. And the other thing is just to respect all religions and faiths and people, right? And understand that everybody possesses greatness, not just one individual or an individual group. Everybody possesses greatness. And you have to see their greatness, because if you don't see their greatness, how do you see your own greatness? Right? Yeah. And how does that make people treat other people if they don't see that others have greatness like they do? Well, I'd say pretty bad. You're going to treat people pretty bad because you don't see that they have the same potential as you do to do great and beautiful things as well as bad things. Everybody possesses that ability, right? Any given moment. So it really teaches the importance of thoughts, words, and actions, and how important those are, right? I think it was Martin Luther King said something about don't judge somebody by their word. I'm going to butcher this, man. I feel horrible. But something about judging them by their character, right? Something about their character.
Yeah. Not by the color of their skin. Maybe Dana.
By their character. Yeah.
Right. So, he talked about his daughters in particular, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, that's very adamant in the Buddhist practice that I practice, So I don't know if there's any, I don't know if you want any more. That's about, I don't want to take too long. Sorry.
No, that was great. That was good. That's fantastic. So Dana, where do you fall? You talked about also being raised religious, and now, in kind of tagging on to Dan's part, or, he did reference you. So in all fairness, you had some time to rebut. But you're now talking about sort of transcendentalism, this idea that we can prove using scientific methods to an extent.
Prove the truth can be proven in that, one, like I said, I grew up Christian, kind of like I said, the black church is just this kind of, people use that term often, but it's all, I don't want to say mythological, but it's just kind of that obviously as a community of people, there's some things that are emblematic of how we worship under certain banners. And
right.
So,
but I mean, it's sort of an umbrella term, right? For like Christianity, right? I mean, Christianity is another umbrella term.
Right. That's true.
So did you grow up like Southern Baptist? Was it, born again Christian? Was it Pentecostal? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember very well. Like, and it's funny you asked, that's so funny you mentioned Pentecostal. So both my parents were Baptist, but my dad was raised by my grandmother, his mother, and she was what's called Church of God in Christ, which falls under Pentecostal Assemblies of the World. So summers were, and I'm one of those kids who we spent summers with the grandparents and we were with our parents year round. So in the summer, and my grandmother was card carrying. She, never always wore dresses, never, these very kind of strict ritual ideas, but very blessed. She never made my sister and I do that. But in the community, the very, very small community, which she lived in South Alabama, everybody in that town was either Baptist or Church of God in Christ. And my grandmother, when we talked about missionaries, she was the missionary for that town. She was converting everyone. So anybody that wasn't already going to the Baptist church was being converted to her church, the Pentecostal church.
Pentecostal.
So I grew up thinking, like, growing up Baptist is kind of, to me, is like basic fare. You read the Bible, and as a kid, it didn't all add up to me. And I think all of us as children have the same questions, like, okay, well, if Adam and Eve were the only people and then they had two sons, Cain and Abel, where did all these other people come from? So there was just all this missed stuff. But that was enough to, even though now I realize that those were kind of small details, but it was enough to open the door to make me question, like, how much else of this how much else do we not know? How much other detail is not here? So then fast forward to my college days of, and you go up and it's ritual, like Dan's, like Stephen's friend, you're going to church every Sunday, and there's a certain amount of fellowship. So there's youth groups, there's Sunday, there's vacation Bible school, there's choir, there's all these other great ways to fellowship. So you're certainly reading the Bible and learning all these tenets, but there's all this other great fellowship, because now where I am in life is, that's really the biggest reason to go to a building and meet once a week, is because you can then connect with other like-minded people. Because at any time,
networking, baby.
Yes. I mean, ultimately, because at any other time, God is with you always, or by any name, whatever, and you are in need of whatever the spiritual experience is on a daily basis. So just fast forward, I even, I tested out Buddhism for a minute. When my son first got here, I was trying to kind of run two tracks. I was still going to a Pentecostal church that I found here in California. And if you know anything about the Pentecostal world, they stay in church all day. Like when I was a kid, that was the thing that we dreaded, that we would be there from Sunday school until almost dinner time, and we'd basically eat, and then we'd have to go back to some other church at night. And in the backwoods of Alabama, we'd be at our home church, and then we'd be driving 30 minutes down the road to somebody else's church, and we'd be there until midnight. The only thing I could say is that the music was always so much better. I was like, well, how do they get to have guitars and drums? Like in the Baptist church, all we had was organ and piano. So anyway, fast forward to, just all these amazing experiences and growing up that way, because there's a lot of beauty in it. Because of, what is in all people in terms of individual groups, there is expression. So in the Black church, when people are, roused in the spirit, it caused any type sort of speaking in tongues, and there was dancing, there was movement, there's all this stuff. But then at some point, literally in the last 2012, last 8 years, I kind of just wanted to go a different way. Like, I had been going to a church here, pastored by a man named Noel Jones, who is, if you guys have ever heard of Grace Jones actually has a twin brother, and her brother runs a very huge church out in Gardena. And I was going to some of the larger, what they call mega churches here in California. But I just, again, the same questions from childhood kind of cropped up. This idea that there was some people who were saved and some people who were not saved, and some people were chosen and some people were not, like all this kind of divisiveness. So the church that I attend now was actually started by the physical church was started by the late actress Della Reese. The movement, I'm sure you guys have heard of, like the unity movement out of Kansas City, Missouri. So there was this movement that, again, going back to the transcendentalist piece, that came out of, I guess, late 19th century, early 20th century, where it was just the idea that at that time people were dying of things that they didn't have to die from. There wasn't the medical advancements we had. So there was a lot of healing movements that took foot, again, late 19th century, early 20th century. And basically their question was, if Christ, this man that we read about in these Christian scriptures, if he can heal people or heal himself or heal others, then why can't we do the same? Why are we not? And so then people began to find ways to do that. And so going back to this, like for me, this provable truth idea, you know, out of that movement spawned quite a bit. There is Christian Science, which is not necessarily what I rock with, but there's divine, like, you know, just be well. I Christian Science gives me headache or pause just because I do believe that even if you're trying to be organic or natural, that if there's a needed intervention of Western medicine, then let's do it. You know, everything under creation by any name is good. Doctors are good. Everybody's good. You know, the you know, it is your individual decision to say this what does or does not work for me. But I could not imagine being in a body of religious people, seekers or not, and saying that this baby is failing to thrive and we're not going to take that baby to the doctor. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to take additional steps to see to life in this. So out of the unity movement came all of these different movements: Christian Science, divine science, and all that. And basically racism did not escape where all of these folks studied at Unity in Missouri. So a woman named Johnny Coleman, who came out of that school, where it was, you know, this cure movement, all these things that come to a head, went to Chicago, and it's like anything, they started setting up seed churches. But she decided to, from that movement, what's called Unity, out of Kansas City, Missouri, decided to start her own denomination, Universal Foundations for Better Living. But it's all rooted in the same idea that God is within us, God is within everything, that we are all connected by source, that while we appear as discrete units amongst one another, we are all one in spirit, period. And I then kind of travel over to Marianne Williamson and the Course in Miracles, because it's, you know, that we are living in a three-dimensional world, but that everything is happening in a very, very quiet and spiritual, whether you say fourth dimension or spirit or whatever, that's the room where it's all happening. And all we're doing is we are expressions, physical manifestations, expressions of a one spirit, you know, over time. And if that's, and in so believing that whatever book one chooses, because I've chanted before, I've done all of it, it's all about returning to the connection of that one power and that one presence for absolute good that is within you, and being able to then make your decisions, decide your life, move forward, raise your children, whatever it is, from that space, from that awareness that you may not express perfectly, but that there is a perfection within you. And that the greater you work to widen your awareness of your connection with that spirit with a capital S, then the greater expression you are on the planet, until it is time for your physical body to be done with this time and move away.
Gotcha. So you guys span the gamut. This is why Dan doesn't want to talk spirituality or religion, because you guys are all over the freaking map. That's why.
Well, it's also that it's, you know, I grew up in one of those normal, I shouldn't say normal, but normal for where it was, white suburban Catholic and Christian community, where the two things you don't talk is politics and religion. And so you end up with some, and sorry if there's ever been any of this, Dana, that you end up some interesting assumptions about what people believe before you actually find out. And so you start walking a little carefully around it, because really what you want is not for people to dislike you because you have a different view than them. And so that's why I guess we've never really brought it up very much at all in our show or between us. It's, or at least from my perspective, like for me, I haven't brought it up because I do have religious mocking, you know, jokes, but that's for the audience that likes them. And that's, you know,
Sure.
And it's not for me to jump in someone's face, to be that standard angry atheist cornering someone at the party going, what do you believe? Oh, are you serious about this? You serious, man?
Right.
Oh gosh,
Are
that's
sure?
stupid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like too, though, stand up should challenge there's an aspect, I don't know, and everybody has different, right? Some people are like, hey, I just want to make people laugh. I'm not trying to like change people's minds, or, I personally am more like, I would like a stand-up show to challenge everybody's assumptions. And so I have made a personal commitment to myself to be like, oh, if I have a joke that's maybe a bit racial, okay, arguably even maybe racist, and I just don't know it, I need to do that joke in front of, the people that I feel like I might be targeting or I might be offending. And if they laugh, then I know it's good.
Yeah, I think Jim Gaffigan does it very well. He is one of the people that he can book, Utah for a month. He also does videos of faith with his wife. But at the same time, he can go up there and say, my wife's like a Shiite Catholic, and everybody laughs.
Yeah.
And he knows how to approach that and say, look, this is what I'm thinking. Let me say it in a way that's respectful, but it reaches a wide audience. I don't know if all my jokes are like that, but I think some of them are just some of them might graze that territory. Although I'm not an aspiring Jim Gaffigan, except for sometimes the gut. So
yeah. Well, that's fair, and that's fair. Sweet. So we've gone a good hour and a half. I've had some internet issues, so I've got 98%, I think, of our conversation. There are a couple points where I don't know if you all noticed, but I froze, or who knows what happened. All that being said, I think it's time for us to move to the final segment of the podcast, where you guys get to pepper me now with questions about what's the deal with Mormons. Are you all ready?
Do it.
Okay. I can only see Stephen on my screen, and his eyes get real big, so I don't know what his grandpa was talking about.
So, hey, how about we start with the obvious one? Tell us about the underwear.
Sure. The magic underwear. So these, yeah. So we call them garments. They are a religious garb, right? Similar to like a sari, or I guess really sari is more cultural, but in any event, think Hasidic Jews, but we wear them on the inside, right? Underneath clothing as opposed to outward. So
and are any of them
chastity belt?
What's that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Dan said the obvious question. I have no idea what you're talking about. So, like, if you could start at the beginning, like, what? I don't know what you mean.
Is it a chastity belt? What is this? Your purity ring?
I mean, they are not sexy underwear, so in a way, it's a chastity belt.
I know,
but it is not like lock and key. There's no like, what is it? Is Robin Hood Men in Tights? I think that has the whole chastity belt bit. No, I mean, you can look up pictures of them online. I won't encourage you to do that because they are, we consider them sacred clothing, right? Okay. So in our religion, similar to Catholicism, Stacy, we have kind of catechisms, or like sort of rites of passage, and one of those is to go through our temples. So we have regular church buildings that we used to go to in the before times every Sunday to meet as a congregation. And then we also have temples, which are sort of more sacred buildings. So you have to be a member of our faith in good standing in order to acquire a temple recommend, which is your sort of ticket into the building, right? Mm. And there are certain ordinances and religious rites that are performed in the temple that are performed nowhere else. And one of those is what we call the endowment, where we learn about the creation, we learn about kind of our roles as men and women and our relationship to each other and to God. And it culminates in, receiving the garment, right? So when you go through the temple for the first time, you enter the building not wearing the garments or the magic underwear. And when you come out of the building after your first time through the temple for yourself, then you are wearing now the sacred garment, the magic underwear. So it's a symbol of our covenant that we make during the ordinance in the temple to our God, and reminds us physically of that spiritual covenant.
There was a presidential candidate actually who wore the magic shirt and underwear. I forget the name though.
Mitt Romney.
Yeah,
Mitt Romney was our guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who was famously said by Joe Biden to want to re-enslave all black people. So I feel kind of strongly the reason we have Donald Trump now is because people on the left hated Mitt Romney so much back in the day.
I think that Mitt Romney, though, has shown with his actions to Donald Trump that he's a rather decent fellow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. I thought so from the beginning. Look,
Right.
I voted for Obama, and when he went up against my guy, he lost in my mind. You know, in my heart, I went with Romney. That's just the way I went.
Well, I think the thing is that there was focus on different things at the time, right? When Mitt Romney's running for president, he's running for the Republican platform. Unfortunately, you're going to pander to certain audiences to get their vote. And then now that he wasn't running for president anymore, and now he felt that his party had left him, he was going to be honest about the things that were bugging him about the guy now that no one got to hear him talk about before.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, in all fairness, it's not like Trump was on the Republican landscape before 2016 anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I definitely I grew respect for Mitt Romney, when he definitely voted for the impeachment, but I think, one thing that life teaches you, spiritual or not, is that people evolve and people, people change. And here's the thing, just because I wasn't.
Well, they can't. Some people, they can change. Not everybody does. Some people do.
And so where Mitt Romney was concerned, I think I was just very impressed with it. But I think, to Dan's point, like we've grown up or most of us anyway, have grown up in a nation that seems to be, that was, very Democratic or Republican, that was in anything that was Green Party or even Libertarian, any of these things in between. For a long time, that's what it was. And I think there's still a lot of allegiance to this idea that we're in this heavily two-partied system. And so I certainly didn't explore Mitt Romney anymore, because if you say Republican, that's it for me, because he's not. None of the current Republicans are the Republicans of Abraham Lincoln, and the one that we knew to have had something to do with the freeing of slaves. I
don't know what you're talking about. Donald Trump has done more for black people than anybody since Abraham Lincoln. So,
and I grew up Democrat. I grew up
That's a
Democrat.
good one, Seth.
All my life. I grew up Democrat all my life. So I'm at this point, I'm again, much respect to Mitt Romney at this point, but I'd still have to learn more, because I would also, for knowing very little about LDS, when you say certain things, I'm just like, oh, well, I don't know what that is. And it, whatever I've heard, and whatever I have heard, there's all this negative connotation. I can't, and it's funny as I think, I'm like, well, what have you heard? I don't really know. Like, I'm just like, you just hear certain things, this bad, this good. And so that's bad,
Yeah. Well, and Mormons are not thought of very fondly in the Baptist faith, nor in the Pentecostal faith, as far as I understand it. So
right.
I can completely understand.
Right.
It's funny because when Dan started with, the obvious question, I thought he was going to go with polygamy, and then he went with
No.
And that's the only thing that is obvious to me, that I'm completely aware of, the polygamy, but not anything about garments. And it's funny you say that, Seth, because never in my growing up did any pastor or anything in my childhood ever say that Mormons were bad. But I grew up. One of the things that I always noted, which was also a turnoff about religion, I don't know if anybody else experienced this, whatever religion one tends to grow up in, people they propagate it as the only or the best. They propagate it as the only or the best. So while no one ever said down with Mormons, people say down with polygamy, there's always this in the back of any church I've ever been a part of. They've always, except for my current church, it's just this idea that there's one true faith. And nothing could be further. Nothing could be further from the fucking truth than
Well, I mean, agree to disagree, Dana. It's a commonly held belief in, I think, a lot of Christian faiths that you have to be of a certain denomination in order to get a certain reward, right?
Right.
And in that respect, we are no different as Mormons, So
you guys believe you're the one true faith as well?
I mean, yeah, we know we are. That's the only difference. We don't
Okay,
believe it. We know.
Oh, we know it.
West Side.
Okay, here's my
Yeah, I mean, so some of the things that we do in our temples, one is to do this endowment, which leads to the holy garment. The other, though, is baptisms for the dead, and this is where I feel like the Latter-day Saint faith has maybe freaked everybody out, but also I think really kind of covered every base, which is we as a faith understand that, and this was, not everybody is born into Christianity, right? Not everybody even hears about Jesus Christ.
Right.
So within my faith, we believe that what happens after you're dead is your body separates from your spirit. Your spirit goes to a spirit world. If that's the fourth dimension, I'm totally down with it. And you're either in a state of spirit prison or you're in a state of spirit paradise. And the only thing that really separates those two is whether or not you have been baptized into the Mormon faith. And so in our temples, we perform baptisms by proxy for those who have already died.
Okay. That's interesting.
Giving them, the idea is we give these spirits the opportunity to accept that ordinance in their place, and they can move then from spirit prison to spirit paradise. And those terms, I think it's just a sense of being trapped as opposed to a sense of being free, right?
Okay.
So it's not like they're different kind of places and one is really prison and they're making license plates for the other people driving around. Yeah. We actually got in trouble with the Jewish faith because we were baptizing Holocaust victims.
Yeah.
And Jewish faith actually sued our faith to stop us from performing those baptisms, which we did. We complied with. We said, fine, fair enough. But we also, I think that means we won. I mean, why else would they care?
And when you say, okay, so now I have another question. So when you, wow, so when you say baptizing by proxy, but like if a person, so I guess, let me see. So if the folks who are Jewish are suing, like how do they know who you're baptized? Like how did they know y'all were baptizing Jewish people? Like how did they even know?
Well, because we went to their, the head the head rabbis and said, we want names of Holocaust victims. We have some names and we were performing these baptisms, but we would like more. And essentially they said no, and you should stop. You should actually take the baptisms you've already performed, back. And we're sort of like, well, we can't really do that.
How do you unbaptize?
Wow, Seth, that's ballsy though. That's very ballsy. Like like it's very ballsy. I in my mind, I'm like, because how do we know they're like, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I learned something. I love
this was actually a bit that Bill Maher did about the the postmortem baptizing of Mitt Romney's father. Was Bill Maher got up there and undid it with a wizard hat and a magic wand and said, well, this is going to work too. Sure. I mean, no disrespect, but I thought it was a really funny bit. That's before I stopped watching him.
Right. And that's fair. That's fair. The problem that I have with Bill Maher and to an extent Ricky Gervais is that I feel like their jokes about religion are coming from a place of true hatred. I don't think they respect religious people. I don't think they admire faith at all. I think they find it incredibly detrimental. So I think in their head, they're trying to do a good thing by making fun of and kind of belittling religious people, but I don't think it's coming from a place where they respect religious people.
Got it.
Or he did it because
I might be wrong
of the gall of baptizing someone when they're not there to consent. I think that was his biggest problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I think that's probably the misunderstanding because we don't think that we've done it in a way that is above their will. We are giving them the choice, right? So they, if anything, we're correcting the fact that they didn't have the choice in this life.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm still confused.
Is this before or after you ask them?
Well, we believe that they are faced with the decision in their afterlife, right?
Oh.
So it's not like we're asking someone on their deathbed, "Can we baptize you after you
Right.
die?"
Well, I mean, if you do
No.
that, then at least you're, they're alive to say
So
yes
that
or no.
that's I guess that's all I'm trying to get clear about, Seth. And just so
Yeah.
if someone's in the afterlife, how do they get consent? How do you guys
I mean, that's up to them, right? That's up to them. They make the choice. I don't know if they've accepted it or not. But they do, right? That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
I guess so. That's what I'm confused about. But how do you know they did? Like, how do you get? How are you? Yes.
That is not my problem.
I
don't know how else to tell you this.
I could see this.
Yeah.
In Yiddish is like, hey, if you want to be baptized after you die, don't. It's your own choice.
Yeah.
Hey, it's up to you. I mean, you could take redemption or not. It's totally your choice.
Right. I mean, and kind of one of my questions to all of you is if you feel a personal connection with a higher power or with a God, or however you want to describe it, with the universe, with a, what's the word I am looking for? I can't think of it.
I can answer that really quickly.
Yeah.
I'm getting cremated. I don't believe in any gods, but I do believe I respect those that do, as long as they don't hurt me, the ones I love, my friends or people in the world. And if it makes you happy, but you're not hurting yourself or other people, go for it. But myself, I'm going to be cremated. I believe in reincarnation, and yeah.
See, I believe in reincarnation too. It's just a specific kind of reincarnation.
I actually have questions about that. Yeah.
Let me apologize, Seth. Can you? I know Stephen got it, but can you complete the question because I wanted to hear the. No. Oh, what was the whole?
No. I mean, I was just trying to think of what is, like, there is an idea, I think, in Buddhism, right, of kind of analogous to heaven, but nirvana. Why couldn't I think? I was thinking grunge band. Which one? Anyway, nirvana is not Buddhist, but the idea isn't it Buddhist and Hindu?
It's in both. It's in both.
Yeah.
But the term refers to basically a state of enlightenment while you're alive. Not a heaven or hell.
Not after.
In Buddhism, heaven and hell are on earth, and you're living it at any given moment. Given moment. It's heaven and hell are inside you and outside you, and you experience it in every living moment.
Part of my analogy to heaven was just this idea of happiness, right? This idea of joy.
Yeah.
So for a lot of Christians, I think we really only attain pure joy in the afterlife, which may or may not be flawed, right? That idea, not the afterlife.
Yeah.
So is the question then, if we have a relationship with God and we're concerned about what happens when we die, what is it that we think is happening? Like I'm still trying
to. I was just more concerned, or like wondering if you feel a connection with a higher power during this life at all.
Very much, because I'm not. For us, in the movement that I walk through in this unity movement, heaven and hell are states of consciousness. They are not places that you migrate to for good behavior or bad behavior. They're states of consciousness. Because I know that I'm one with God now, then I don't have to die to become one with God. And I certainly don't have, and there is any separation from God would be my own thinking. That would not be a fact that I'm in any way separated.
Gotcha.
That I'm in any way separated. So all that happens, despite, because I lost my mom at a very young age, so I certainly grieve over the loss of life and still grieve because she's been gone a long time physically. But for me personally, it's mastering the understanding that water exists in ice, steam, or in a cup in water, and that all of them are all still water. Like none of them, but they are different states of the water's existence. So when my physical body is not any longer here and I'm only a product of spirit, then that is another state of being for me. And that there is, so I am heaven and hell are like I said, a state of consciousness. So that's for me. I don't believe in an afterlife. And I grew up though, believing in one until I came to a different space. Because there was this idea that my mom is in heaven and that I can't wait to be with her and
Right.
But from a spiritual place, that I allowed that to then deny me a relationship that I could have had with her in the state that she's in, which is a spiritual state and not one that's in the body. And so
but I mean, so I guess I'm a little bit confused in like a spirit state versus an afterlife, because to me it's almost analogous, those two.
Because I guess afterlife typically makes some reference to, this is the state I'm in after my body is done. Yeah. And I'm saying that I'm a spiritual being now. My expression is in a physical body. When I'm no longer expressing as a physical body, I'm still spirit. Like, so it's
really you're just saying, okay, I think I got it. So there's a spirit life, if we want to divide it. So you believe spirit life continues.
Right. Okay. It definitely continues. For me, I'm gonna take I know, I'm gonna say it like you said it, Seth. I know that it continues.
That's my thing.
No, right. Cool. I can't take it.
Seth, just one thing, a little fun fact. Do you know the major modern reason why polygamy is not accepted?
Major modern reason?
Yeah.
It was deemed illegal in the 1890s.
Well, there's one of that, but there's a big modern reason why it would be fought back nowadays. And it's called databases that have a one-to-one relationship based on the tradition of one man, one woman, where where there are multiple databases throughout America that would have to be updated at the cost of billions of dollars. Would polygamy become legal? It's actually one of the arguments that comes up every once in a while. It gets brought up, is that the cost of legalizing polygamy would hurt the software world really bad, and everything runs on software.
Interesting. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Some of the polygamous families are quite wealthy, so I don't know. I mean, I wonder if polygamy legally will return based on the way we have now defined marriage to accommodate homosexual marriage. It's a very interesting question to me.
But in that case, that's not breaking the database, because they put one person to another person in that database at the current state. Yeah,
the database theory, and I say phooey. No.
Hey, I'm a software tester, but it's something you learn about. It was one of the fun facts that I found out about, that unfortunately, the way that business in the world has been run for a long time makes that a very difficult for the world to adopt.
No. Okay, I'm gonna tell you why it's totally not accepted. Honestly, men can barely even handle one woman. Okay, if you get one round out of them, good job. Imagine having the fact that you have to share your man after. You're either going to get that first round, or he's going to tell you he's too tired and it's not working.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know that it would happen all in one night, right? I mean, Joseph Smith has some journals about basically he would split nights, like the week. He'd Monday, Tuesday be with Emma, Wednesday, Thursday be with wife number 2. You got to travel around as a stud, baby.
I dated, and I guess you don't call it dating, but in the Islamic community,
we date.
Muslims believe in multiple wives, and so there was a guy that I was dealing with, and he actually proposed, and I really did try to wrap my head around it. Like, I was like, okay, well, at that moment, I felt like I was at a place where I'm a woman of a certain age, and maybe and at the time I was convinced that I wanted another child, and I still hate that I only have one, but I'm so grateful for the one that I got. So I thought, well, this could whatever, but it was this idea, like I began to struggle with wrapping my head around being a second wife, and then things got messy because it turned out that there was already a second wife, and and it became this kind of what I was trying to find respect for in the space was that I respect the institution of polygamy. I just discovered in the particular way that in that moment, it just wasn't for me. I've been kind of naturalized the way that I've been naturalized, but it's, it's extremely legal around the world. Like, this is in America, we're pretty much in the minority on monogamous relationships. This is not necessarily something that everybody else is doing. But I tried, Seth. I tried, but it just, unfortunately, it got messy because the woman who was in fact the second wife, the guy he was lying about their relationship, and she, and it became that whole like street thing.
That's shocking. That's
like,
shocking to me.
She's calling me like, like it became that I'm like, well, I can't, if this is organized, I could probably wrap my head around it if we can make sense of it. But if it's going to, in this instance, because I don't think it speaks to everybody, it's going to be something that is full of deceit, then that's going to be problematic. But by the same token, it then gave me the space to say, like the Joseph Smith, like, am I down for just 2 or 3 days? Because that's what it was going to be. It was going to be exactly what you said you found in those journals, that I would get this many days and she would get this many. And then I was like, but if you are now trying to divide 7 days by 3 women, like then that gives me enough space to realize that even a second or third it's not for me. I can't speak for anyone else, but it just didn't turn out to be for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, just for the record, I think polygamy as a 14-year-old sounded amazing, but now being married, I don't want it, Stacy, because I don't need 40 lists of how to improve myself. I'm not going to be a different person for each woman I'm with. I'm going to be,
You would die early, bro. You would die early.
I don't know if we have time for this, Seth, but I do have one final question about Mormonism with what I've learned, and I've learned that you're not going to answer this from YouTube, and you're not going to talk about it, and I think that's probably BS. But let's talk about Kolob and the personal planet.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. No, so Kolob actually comes from a hymn, one of our musical hymns, Kolob, referenced also by Joseph Smith, which is supposedly, according to Joseph Smith, where Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother live. Okay. In the idea of Mormonism, and this is where we ran into real issues actually teaching or running into and talking to Muslims. So Muslims, very, very strict, one God, right? There is one God and only one God. We worship one God, but we believe in multiple gods, okay? We believe actually our divine destiny, everybody here, each person, each one of your divine destinies is to become a god or goddess, okay? And in that respect, right, this is where temples come back into play, right? So we are married in temples in the Mormon faith for time and all eternity. So we're sealed together. And that idea is that one man, one woman make it into the highest level of heaven, which is where you become a god and a goddess, making planets, making other spirit babies to then go down to earths and worlds that you create.
Yeah. It reminds me, I don't remember it. Well, that kind of makes me think of the character that Kurt Russell played in the Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Right.
What was his name? Ego.
I don't remember.
His name was Ego.
Yeah, his name was
Ego.
Marvel character.
He had become a planet. He was a brain entity in space, became a planet, and thanks for answering the question, because I had wondered for a long time, is that what it's like? And yes,
I hope not. I hope it's not like Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
No, because he turned out to be a psychopath, right? No one wants to be a psychopath, but it's interesting because I grew up in Walnut, California. We had a thriving Mormon community. If you brought up that question, it was generally pushed away.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I think there has been a big shift in openness within members of the faith. I mean, a big reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because I grew up where, in a congregation that was open about certain things, but the prevailing opinion where I grew up was, if it involves the temple, you should not talk about it. which is not at all doctrinally true, right? There are certain things that, yeah, if you asked me about certain things, I would, one, be shocked you even knew, and two, would have to basically by covenant refuse to answer. But other than those very specific questions, no, let's talk about anything, you know?
See, I think this has been a great show because, you know, we got you're letting us, you know, you're answering questions about the Mormon faith that I haven't always been answered in person, to me at
Sure.
least.
Sure.
And
Sure.
we also got to
you're
know.
a scary looking guy.
Oh, well, yeah, now I am. You should have seen me when I was Dutch boy. You know, the paint kid.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
but we also got to learn about each other too in ways that we didn't talk about on our show yet. We haven't gotten anything like that, and it's pretty neat that we did this show because I don't know. It's very, yeah. It was a very good thing to talk about, and I like the fact that everybody here has a different opinion on this, and it seems that the main thing is to have the peace between all those different opinions, which is
right.
I'm very happy to be part of this right now. So
yeah, well, thank you all so much for joining. I hope we got to questions that people wanted to get to. If anybody had any other questions,
I think Stacy did you want to say some more on the whole polygamy thing? It looked like you had more to say about the multiple wives thing. Sorry, it just looked like you did. I was like, I think she's having a moment and she wants to express herself.
Some strong opinions, Stacy.
Whatever it is.
So many questions. We just don't have more time.
We do. Go for it.
Well, Stacy, where Stacy is right now, I believe it is 2 a.m.
I think we're 3 probably very soon.
Oh my gosh, where are you in this country of ours?
It's 2.
I'm in Virginia right now.
Oh boy, yeah. So you're 3 hours ahead. It's 2 a.m. Oh my gosh, Stacy, we're killing you.
Did you have further questions, Dana?
I was waiting for Stacy. No. I'm trying to think anything. I feel like I learned a lot. I'll say this about me when it comes to religion or spiritual walks. I don't really have a lot of questions because I feel like everybody's journey is so intensely personal and it's so intensely their own. So coming on the show, I didn't realize, that I whatever I understood, I was thinking we were talking kind of spirituality in general. I didn't know that it would drive in this specific way, and it's been beautiful. But I kind of, like I said, for me, everything is principle based and not necessarily dogma based. So the short answer for me is that no, I don't have any more questions because I feel like everybody's going to the same place. We're all going to God in whatever form or whatever name.
We're going to Mormon heaven, obviously.
So we're,
okay.
I'll take a planet. I'll take a planet. It'll be fine. I'll take a planet.
Go for it, Stacy.
Is polygamy something that is pushed upon in the Mormon community, or is it specifically generally in a particular state where it's legal?
Right. So it's nowhere is it legal in the United States.
Right.
So it's not practiced anywhere in the faith. Right. Right now, the church's stance is that if you practice polygamy, you are actually not a member of the faith, or you're excommunicated. Right. So you're sort of kicked out of the herd, as it were. But the church has not come out to say that polygamy is an evil practice, only to say that we do not practice it now as a faith. So that if you were to practice it right now, it would be contrary to what we understand to be God's will at this time. So that leaves open the possibility, and there's kind of a lot of, conjecture and theorizing about if it comes back, how it would, in what state, not just of the 50 United States, but in kind of what form. In Joseph Smith's time, when it was practiced in our modern day, it was only practiced by certain individuals, right? So people were actually called into polygamy. It was essentially a church calling. It wasn't like a free-for-all. And there are, depending on how detailed you want to get, there are some theories as to why. Some of them sound more Mormon kind of apologist than true. But some of those theories are that, in the early days of the church, our understanding of heaven and qualifications for heaven were not as clear as they are now. So there was a lot of kind of base covering, right? So it was sort of like, well, just in case, let's marry all of these women, and then everyone will be eligible for heaven if anything happens. Okay. And a lot of it was done also because early members of our faith were actually like killed off, hunted, and kicked out, right? So like Missouri hated Mormons in the 1830s and 1840s. And there was actually, the governor essentially signed an extermination order saying, if you find a Mormon, you have legal authority to kill them on sight. No questions asked. It's not murder. You're doing us all a favor. So we ended up leaving Missouri because of that, and that's what started our trek west into Utah.
Okay, so this is, so just to reiterate, if I understood correctly, the reason there are 14-year-old brides is to ensure that they may get to heaven, right?
In the past, that does not happen within the faith any longer. But yeah, in the past, yes. And Joseph Smith, there were two kind of general types of marriages that were performed. Some were called for time, and some were called for eternity. And essentially, I mean, to be frank about it, really, it just meant who was Joseph Smith sleeping with, right? So you could be married for time to a 14-year-old, but that meant essentially Joseph Smith or whoever was married for time, they're not having marital relations, right? They're not having sex. They're not having intercourse.
You hope.
That's why I said some of these sound more apologist than maybe it was reality. But I mean, I don't believe that Joseph Smith was a pedophile, for instance, which is a huge criticism against Joseph Smith, largely because of these 14-year-old brides, right? And as far as I know, there's only record of one being 14, and it was a 4-time marriage. So, as far as we know, the idea was that he was not having sex with this woman or with this girl, right? Depending on how you want to define it.
Right.
But it is interesting that you brought up what happened in Missouri, because I was gonna, I knew it got late. It's getting late, but a lot of people don't know that America kind of swept under the rug what happened in Missouri a long time ago. If you look at the history of how Utah became basically the Mormon haven, for not a lack of a better word, it was because they were pushed out through acts of genocide from their state that they started in.
That's crazy.
By fellow Americans.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do not understand that.
Right.
I didn't know
that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So Utah was a territory when the early saints arrived. They essentially, they colonized it, right? They had their bouts with Native Americans in the area. And when they became a state, a large part of why they became a state and why politics doesn't really factor into Mormonism as much as it does into other branches of Christianity is because members were assigned a political party, 50-50. Because a big part of the reason they were allowed into the Union as a state was so they wouldn't throw off the balance that had been struck politically. So one of the deals was, yes, you can become a state if it's 50-50 Republican Democrat. So there were church meetings where essentially the leader of the congregation would say, great, in order to become a state, everybody on my right is Republican, everybody on my left, you have to register as a Democrat, you are now Democrats, and you can't change. That's it.
Wow.
You can vote however you want, but as far as which party you are registered with, that's the way it has to be so that we can become a state and receive federal aid.
Yeah, it was it's almost like in the golden age of Islam in early Baghdad, before it was Baghdad, anybody of any religion or any race could live there. But if you weren't Muslim, you had to pay a special tax. There was a special thing that you had to do that the Muslims did not have to do. And that's the same with what happened with the Mormons, is you had to be half this to be a state. where that requirement wasn't given to all the other Christian groups.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Today I learned.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do not practice or preach polygamy at all anymore. It's not, if anything, it's pushed against, right? We are not a polygamist faith. But we, no leader has disavowed it as a bad practice, right? It's throughout the Old Testament, which we accept as scripture. It's alluded to in the New Testament through the Old Testament. And, that's a big reason why Joseph Smith essentially practiced it, was because it was in the Old Testament, and he asked, and Heavenly Father basically told him through revelation, as we believe, that you should practice it now to kind of take care of these women spiritually, physically, because a lot of the men have been killed, and women don't have all the same ability to make a way in this world. So I think there are arguably a lot of reasons but that's the long and short of polygamy for the
They
Mormon
made a TV
faith.
show about that on HBO too, actually.
Big
With,
Love, baby.
Yeah, Big Love with Bill Paxton.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Really good TV show.
Is
sorry,
the
go ahead.
Book of Mormon and two things. Interestingly enough, in Islam, according to the revelation by Muhammad, that was why they were allowed to take additional wives, because you were allowed to take widowers, and even the guy who fell in love with me, it was just because even though I think when he met me, had my son's father passed away. Actually, when he met me, my son's father had passed away, but we were never, me and my son's father were never married. But I fell into this category of kind of the widowed with this child that needed to be taken care of. So it's interesting to hear. But again, the Quran is written, is revealed and written at a time that responded to war, and responded to why women were left, without a way to make a way in the world. But is the Book of Mormon different from the Bible? I mean, I assume yes, but I don't like. I when I hear people hear the, not just the Broadway play, but I'm like, what is the book? What is you guys' book?
Yeah. So we have 3 other books technically that we consider scripture along with the Bible.
Okay.
One is the Book of Mormon, one is the Doctrine and Covenants, and one is the Pearl of Great Price.
Okay.
The Book of Mormon is the most famous one because it's the gold plates that Joseph Smith finds or is led to, depending on which version of the story you want to believe. Obviously, for the faith, it is that he was led to, that stemmed from this question that he had and posed and to Heavenly Father, right? Which was, which religion should I join? So this is the catalyst for the faith being restored. The gold plates are a record of the early inhabitants of the American continent, North and South. Okay. Mm-hmm. And stems from a family in Jerusalem that then travels to the American continent and inhabits the American continent. So it's a story of that group of essentially Israelites that moved and populated the American continent, their relationship with each other and Heavenly Father, right?
Okay.
So that's the Book of Mormon. That's what Joseph Smith translated. While he was translating the book, or rather after he translated the Book of Mormon and kind of restored the church, his first years as prophet or head of the church, he had a lot of revelations. And while translating, had some revelations that he wrote down. Those all later became what we call the Doctrine and Covenants, which is a more modern book of scripture. Mostly Joseph Smith, some later prophets, but mostly Joseph Smith. Pearl of Great Price is one that gets a lot of flack from historians because Joseph Smith claims to have received or purchased papyrus that contained ancient writings of Abraham that he translated into what we call the Pearl of Great Price. So there's been a lot of debate about the validity of those records, but we accept them as scripture in my faith. So it tells the story of Abraham, the Abraham with Isaac, that Abraham, and it tells the story of Moses.
Thank you. That would be my question.
Yeah. No, this has been great, guys. I know it's getting late. Thank you so much for enduring it with me. This has been really fun. yeah, I think one of the beautiful things about these kind of conversations is that, the two topics we should not talk about are religion and politics. I still don't like talking about politics. I get too involved. It gets too heated. It's not fun. Religion, though, I think is still very personal, and we need to be respectful of it. And that's why I like having the conversation, because I think we all can find commonality even in the dichotomy. So this has been a beautiful conversation. You guys are great. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us. We'll have you on our show very soon.
That'd be great. That'd be
Very
great.
soon.
We can address more questions. Maybe when it's not 2 a.m. And Stacy has some more. So where can people find your podcast, guys? Is it only on YouTube right now?
Anybody? Facebook,
YouTube, Twitch, and where does Periscope go, Stefan? I'm still confused by that.
Thing, right?
Yeah, Periscope is Periscope.
Yeah, Periscope is its own thing, but it is owned and run by Twitter. So Twitter owns Periscope. And so it's its own entity. But when we go live, we use StreamYard, and the stream, once we go live, it goes to YouTube, Therapy of the Absurd, Facebook, Therapy of the Absurd, Twitch, where all the gamers, stream their stuff, and there's some DJs that go on there. We have the show on there, Twitch, under Therapy of the Absurd, and as well as Periscope under Therapy of the Absurd. So, yeah.
Cool.
You just search for Therapy of the Absurd, and you can find it Thursdays at 8. Pacific time.
Pacific.
Not where Stacy is now.
Every Thursday. Yes, every Thursday.
Okay. Why don't you guys send me all of your handles for social media in the Skype chat, and I'll put them in the show notes for when this goes live. It'll go live probably next Sunday. So, Sweet. All right. Thank you, guys. Stacy, get some sleep.
Thank you. Thank you.